What's happening, Shredder Nation? Happy Tuesday! I am not Jesse James Jemnick, but I am our Chief Shred Educator, Heather Sica-Leonard, here filling in on tonight's episode of Shred Your Body. And we have our head of the ER Shred Board of Health Professionals, Susan Rothman, with us tonight. And this tonight's all about the girl power because we've got some awesome stuff to talk about. We're so excited to be here to share with you guys some things that we're observing. We understand that the protocol is constantly evolving. And as you know, Susan and I and the board, we're always in the group. We're always watching. And we're kind of trying to see where the questions are going so we can make sure we are maximizing the value that you get from these weekly calls. So hello, my dear friend, Susan.
Hey, Heather.
So I'm excited for tonight's call because I know there's a lot of stuff that we're going to be talking about that a lot of people who don't do the research and the science stuff that we leave up to you and our brother from another mother to do for us, that you're going to dive into to help just clarify it for those of us that don't do the research. Because I flat out admit, I won't spend my time because that's what you guys like to do. And then I shut up and I listen. So I'm here to shut up and listen and ask some clarifying questions.
Actually, you know, some of the things we're going to talk about tonight, Jesse did all the science. So what I'm going to do is just break it down so it's really simple for people. Because I think sometimes the science can be very confusing for people, especially with the plateau stuff. You want to get into the TDEE or?
Let's go for it. So one of the topics tonight, TDEE, total daily energy expenditure?
Yes.
See, I at least know my acronyms.
Yes, which is your total daily energy expenditure is everything, your heartbeat, your breath, just your basic cardiac output. And then, of course, your day-to-day activity. It's what you expend on a daily basis. So it's really interesting. And so you can find that at www.tdeecalculator.net. And it's a great tool. And I remember when me and Jesse both started talking about it, and I would get a lot of private messages. Oh, my TDE, it's this, it's that. And should I eat like wanting to count macros. Okay. So ER shredders, we don't count. So what I wanted to share is how I use that, because I had plateaus very often. So like if I wanted to, I'll skip meals and I won't meet my protein needs. I needed to see that in black and white, because what would happen is I'd be really comfortable in what I was eating, not eating enough protein, didn't know that. And I would put on like 4 pounds, and I was always cycling in and out of that. So I would actually gain weight eating less. And then when I would increase my protein, I would drop those pounds like within a matter of days. So what that told me is I wasn't stoking the fire. So the TDEE calculator for cutting weight, you go in, you put your stats, your height, weight, all of that, your activity level, and it's going to give you your maintenance calories that you need just to maintain at rest. And then, of course, for some people, they just do that and they want to do, okay, how do I lose weight? You do 500 calories a day, lower than that, but we don't count, right? But if you go to the breakdowns and you put in whether you're bulking or cutting, it's going to give you the low carb, high carb, moderate carb options. So we're low carb. And then my protein needs were like 185. And I was floored by that. So what I did with that is I would, let's say I was having, because I use a Fitbit app to log my food. But for me, sometimes that's annoying and I'm busy and I don't want to do that. So what I would do is I would just Google 4 ounces of chopped meat, how many grams of protein, 6 ounces of chicken, how many grams of protein. And I would loosely track. And what I found is I was about 60 to 80 grams less. So it gave me, yes, because I have a high Yeah. So it gave me my bar of where to go. That's all I looked at. That's all I used. I know we can use fat too. For some people, like if you're nervous about fat, it's a way to inch it up, inch it up, inch it up. And at the same time, you can track your results.
So two things here I want to just tap into. Number one, like you said, it's a tool. You use it as a reference point. It's not the be all end all definition of everything. Yeah. And I know you and I talk about tools a lot because I let one interrupt my brain this morning. But another thing that you pointed out, that I was listening to a book this morning, and I can't remember which one because I listened to 3 books today. Yeah, that's what that like as I was cleaning and doing things. I just had audiobooks going, right? But they talked about doing this presentation live. And they went to the beach and they started 2 bonfires at the same time, like got these raging bonfires, right? And so you're saying the days that you only ate twice, you would gain weight. And then the days that you would nourish throughout to get closer to your protein goal. Yes. So in the experiment that this presenter was talking about, he talked about he started both fires at the same time, but he only fed one.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And as the one that he kept feeding kept burning. Mm-hmm. And I think that analogy helped me visualize that my metabolism is not going to keep burning if I don't keep fueling the fire. Mm-hmm. And then when you use the tool of the TDEE to know where that level is and how much wood you need to bring to your bonfire to make it burn, then I think things will balance out. But that analogy just kind of like made it stick for me.
Yeah.
That visual.
Even deeper, I always used to use that pot-bellied wood-burning stove. If you put in green wood, it smolders, nothing comes out. That's detoxification. And then when you add good wood, which is protein, the fire burns, the toxins come out, and people don't realize when they do that. I had a conversation just over last weekend. These girls doing this program, caloric restriction, 900 calories. They have that, lackluster to their skin. There's no muscle tone, and they're turning off their metabolism. They're turning off their metabolism because you have to fuel. We have to fuel that. And it's so interesting because when we say this to one another and where we are and in our group, it's starting to, it makes sense, right?
Right.
But because of the myths that we have been pounded with, it's like people's eyes glaze over and they can't hear you.
And Sarah, I see you. If you search TDEE in the group, it will bring it up for you. Or if somebody else wants to drop the link in the chat, because we can't multitask from the studio, but I do see your question of posting the link. Somebody will help you find that. If not, the magnifying glass at the top of the group can help you find that as well, because I know we talk about TDEE a lot. That also, Susan, reminds me of last week's call when I was talking to Michelle. And on her vegetarian diet, she was so under caloric need.
Think about what she said now, because she was under need. So we're talking about energy. So we're all focused, many people are just hyper focused on weight loss, but that's everything. Remember I said total daily energy expenditure, your heartbeat, your cellular detoxification. So look at her. She cycled and cycled and cycled and went down the spiral with her health. And then as soon as she started nourishing herself, we rise. And we're seeing that in the community. That's part of coming alive, for a lot of people, is their metabolic rate, their mitochondrial energy is now raising up. Yeah, because your body's always moving towards that place of vibrant health.
Right. And it definitely is. Here's Sarah again. It's a mindset. That's part of it too. And it's unlearning everything that's out there about calories in, calories out, and all that crap that we've been taught for how many years.
And it's like I said, you try to bring this to people, and like over the weekend, I just backed off because I could see they couldn't hear me. So I planted seeds and I backed off. And then of course I work in functional medicine, specializing in hormones. I will talk to women every day. All of them are round. And what they've done is their hormones are changing. They're starting to put on belly fat. And then right away, they start cutting calories. And some women seek out the information, but the ones that don't, they're in like 30, 40 pounds before they get it. And so I want that information out there. And whoever asked about TDEE, you can search TDEE in the group. We have the Tdee Calculator.net to find your own numbers.
And if you look, it's pinned right here. Brent went out and got it for us.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say the reason I was inspired to do this is, of course, I love my brother. I love my Jesse. But it was like quick, and it was like a lot of information where I just wanted to get the basics out, to people, that this is just a tool. And what I offer to people in Plateau is loosely just look at the protein. Start there. See what that number is. Are you meeting that number or coming anywhere near it? And a lot of women, that's going to be a big no. And then that's the coolest thing in the world. It's like you discover a present. Eat more.
Isn't that a wonderful thing? Like, I remember back when I was doing my macro counting. My goal was to be green on everything. My carbs. It was a workout. So we're not saying go for everything. Use it as a baseline to figure out where you need to be. Don't drive yourself crazy going there, but use it to gauge what you are doing and feel how your body responds. I think that's the bottom line of it, is it's not defining anything. It's just giving you more information on your journey to empowerment, right?
Right.
Isn't that what it's all about?
It's just data. And, I know, and we're going to talk about this quite a bit tonight, is, ER shredders, right? We're going to take the heaviness out of this. We're going to lighten up mindset, body, soul, everything. So all the heaviness that comes to the journey of weight and getting rid of weight and carrying weight, we need to flip that into shredder mentality and change our mindsets, which is going to help us on the road to be free of all of this. It reminds me of when I was heavy and I lost my weight. I lost about 40 pounds. And I share this with some of the women I coach because I think it's valuable. Well, what happened to me, I didn't realize that I was in it. So I still had a diet mentality and I was always watching. I kept my weight off. And then I think I had gone on vacation and I came home and I realized, you know what? Maybe you can trust yourself. That was 7 years down the road from the weight loss. And that really stuck with me, that a lot of people go through that. It's always this thing that we carry. And my hope for all of you, anyway, that struggle with weight is to be free. To find that for you.
I wish I remember which book it was this morning. I think it was, I'll have to go back and look because, again, I listened to too many this morning because it just reinforces what we're talking about right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And about it's not the mentality is so you need to embrace your lifestyle. And I think that, too, takes some of the heaviness out of it.
And I saw a meme today. It's not that I can't have it. I don't want it.
Yes, I saw that too. I think that was Sharon.
Yeah.
Sharon posted that and I was like, yes, that is so it.
That's exactly it. And then when we interact and we come to that come alive moment, that's what happens. Like I was out again this weekend and there was a birthday party and there was cake. And they were like, I coached 2 of these women through the year shred. And they were like, well, are you going to have cake? I said, I don't know. That used to be a trigger of mine, and I used to be all in. And I did have a bite because I was celebrating, but then I was done. And it wasn't like, oh, I better not have it. I lost my taste for it, which is so awesome.
Isn't it? Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that. Let's dive into that. Treats and snacks and triggers, because I know that's another topic that we want to definitely talk about.
Yes.
So if there's any other questions on TDEE, drop them in the chat. I will pin them so we can come back to this. But I think, again, the main point here is it's a tool to help you figure out where you are and what you need to do. Because again, ER Shred, we're not telling you what to do, friends.
No, never.
That's the power. We're showing you the tools, and then you can use them to apply them to your life. And so that's really what you're looking for. So let's talk about that. So you said cake used to be your trigger.
Well, sugar.
Yeah.
I had a sweet tooth, sugar was a problem. And it's just so surprising to me that I've lost my taste for it. In fact, if I'm going to have it, which I don't have it, like when I had the bite of that cake, I had to work it up. Like, you don't have to. But then again, I also don't want to be the nutrition girl, like, oh, there's the freak. She doesn't, you know what I mean? I wanted to be a part of. So I did have a bite. But usually if I had a bite, I was all in and then take a piece home and hide it. Like hide eating, sneak eating with cake. And no, that's gone from me. And I shared in this group about the frozen yogurt and why I'm so passionate about triggers and the road narrows. That live I did, the road narrows, and then it opens again. And I know that some of you have probably picked up on, I've had comments of not only being frustrated yourselves, but seeing our frustration. And it's not like we don't want, you can't have, but it's very confusing to new people. And I know for me, I'm very protective of this community.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, we'll speak a little later on. We don't talk about it a lot. People that, a lot of people that carry weight, they have emotional issues around food, emotional triggers. For some it is, and we all have, look, we're all here doing this. We all have some form of an addiction to this little area here, but some, it's painful. It's painful for them. And so if you're dealing with something like that, and you haven't even recognized what your triggers are. It might not be a taste. It might be a smell. It might be a crunch. It might be a texture. And you're adding all these foods. How are you ever going to get there? And then the other thing, and we can break this down. I have to get it out or I forget. The other thing is combinations of foods. So yes. So even in your shred, you could have, broccoli, which is a non-culprit, and then half an hour later have a piece of pineapple and you're a bloat city. Why? Because it's like the pineapple's going to ferment that. Same thing with protein and sweet, starch and sweet. So just as you're eliminating culprits, sometimes it's the combination and not the food. So I wanted to point that out.
Yeah. That's really interesting to look at too. Like maybe, so sometimes it's maybe this agreed with me this time and it didn't agree with me this time. Was it really a culprit, or what did I pair it with? That's something really interesting to even think about. And I think that's kind of leading into, do you want to go to the food journaling point at this point? Because that sounds like that kind of leads into that.
We could. Like I said, for you guys that are dealing with cravings, the road, most of us have lived long enough to know that anything really valuable that's changed our lives, that we had to learn, the road narrows, then it opens again. So if you continue to spark that sweet, your brain latches onto that and it's going to propel you in directions you may not want to go. And how do you know that? If you're an ER shredder and shredding in this community, your results. Yeah. If you're not getting the results that you want, even though something may not be a culprit, go back to the baseline.
And I think I want to jump in on this too, because I know in your video you talked about this too, but there's a difference in, if you're not getting the results you want, look at even what's on the shred approved list. Mm-hmm. Like there are pork rinds, there are hot dogs, there is sausage, but that is still processed food. So if you have not overcome those hurdles, if you are not having your aha moment, if you are still struggling with the snacking habit and all of that, get rid of the hot dogs. get rid of the bacon, get rid of those things, and get yourself to the, if you want snacks and stuff ready, get some grass-fed beef and season it with the bone broth that we know is a good choice.
Right.
And we don't necessarily know every time what's in that sausage. There might be something in there triggering you, and that's why you may not be getting there. So while it might be on the approved list, you need to take charge on that road to empowerment that narrows, like Susan talks about, and say, I'm not there yet. I need to go even stricter with myself to get this stuff out and figure out what's going on.
Yes. But I just want to change the language to that, that not stricter, but simpler. Yeah. And to really get your baseline, because at the end of that is that gift. So it's a get to, and it's very, very tricky, but with just nothing, just whole foods, meats and eggs and your butter. And that's how I did my first shred. I think I had a little bit of prosciutto in there. And I'll just share, I got that piece of meat, the picanha, and I was all excited about it. And I reached out to Ricky and he told me how to make it. The picanha was a culprit for me.
Yeah.
So, what do you say about that? So it's the whole thing is a journey. So if you're struggling, you want to eliminate all the variables. And hey, it's only 11 days.
And I like that you corrected my language, because I think we forget how important our language is for ourselves, and saying simpler versus stricter, because I do agree with you. It's a lot less harsh. But it's mindful too. Like when I was on it, we do have that list of approved meats, right? I found out ground pork's a culprit for me. So I can't. But again, it's so 7 days of ribeyes. I can handle that. Let me really figure out what's going on. So give myself 7 days of ribeyes with some eggs from the neighbor's chickens and some butter, right?
Yes. And then just going really slow with the adding on, and then the treats with the processed foods. I don't know, what I'm seeing is we're looking to imitate foods that got us into trouble in a better way.
Ooh.
Yeah,
I see where you're going. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas I'm not saying, like, I would rather, and I hope I don't get in trouble, but my brothers, but I would rather somebody say they've done their shred, they've reached their empowerment, and they say, I want half a bagel, or I like whatever it is, like eat the food, not a pretend of the food. You understand what I'm?
Yeah. And I think too, like a lot of people are digging into the pork rinds because they miss their crunch of their chips, right? So that makes me want them to dig deeper and say, hey, wait a minute. Do you really need that crunch in that pork rind, or is that triggering something else that you're looking for? Like you were talking about earlier, like, is it that crunch factor? Is it a texture, or is it something deeper? And to interrupt yourself to say, why am I grabbing the bag of pork rinds right now? I remember somebody who was struggling in the beginning. They're like, well, I ate 2 bags of pork rinds today. I'm like,
yes, I saw that too. And it's so funny because here we are, because I've been struggling with this all day. I had a conversation with Bob, with Sean. I talked to Jesse about this. I talked to a food coach and a codependency, because I know there's so much depth here and I want it light, right? So there's so much depth. I want it light. And so I just wanted to like tweak the bear a little bit for us to be mindful and of what we're doing here and what our triggers are. And okay, so with the pork rinds, right? I know for me on this protocol, I am fueled. So I'll just share, we'll go a little into food journaling now. I'll just share what happened to me. So I just got it in my head. I want to build some muscle. So I'm tracking my macronutrients on my Fitbit food app. And then I thought, you know what? I know I eat when I'm bored. And seriously, I don't want to take responsibility for this. I'm relatively lean, like, Susan, give it a rest. You're getting older. Can't you just relax? The answer to that is no. So I decided to do a food journal around eating when I'm bored. So Saturday afternoon, I was around the house. I'd been around the house for hours. I was going out in the evening. Around 2:00, I wanted something. And so I had my journal with me. And I thought, well, I wrote in there, I'm not hungry and I want to eat. And then I thought, let me just sit with this for a minute, because it was uncomfortable, because I wanted to act out. It's either eat or pick up the phone, right? Put my face in the phone. I don't want to live that way. I want an awareness about it. So when I did that, I thought to myself, if someone had an emotional issue or an emotionality around food, and some people eat to dull shame and pain and past traumas, and I thought just that statement, let me sit with this, could be very, very uncomfortable. So I want to speak to that, and also that on ER Shred, we are satiated, right? Like, we're eating real food. You shouldn't be hungry on shake days. And when you're reaching for those pork rinds and this, that, and the other, the question could be, am I really hungry? And tapping into that. And then if the answer is yes, for what? Maybe it's not food. That's all I'm like.
Right. So I think my biggest takeaways from that is, there's an I enjoy the ritual of eating.
Absolutely.
And that I agree too. It's like we grew up, like you had breakfast, you had lunch, you dinner, you did this. And there is this balance, like we were talking earlier, fueling the bonfire to keep your metabolism burning. But what are you eating, and why are you eating? And again, I think a lot of that work on the mindset piece is the work that needs to be done. And I think our goal, while we're sometimes hard, right? We're direct because people don't have time for us to be indirect. Okay. I don't have time for it. You don't have time for it. But I think people need to take that time with themselves and then let us know how we can help with that. Because you often, I hear you tell us all the time, you interrupt yourself and say, hey, who's in charge here?
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
That's where I actually said that to somebody the other day. I'm like, I'm thinking of Susan right now saying, who's in charge here?
Well, think about it. People go to bed, and look, I'm talking about this because I did it, right? So in my life, I've done it. So you go to bed on Sunday night, Monday morning, I'm doing this, I'm 100%, I'm eating this, everything locked and loaded, right? And then 4:00 on Monday, you've got pizza in your mouth or something, right? So what happened between that and that? So that's mindset, right? So I think it bears looking into, because we want to be empowered. We want to be free, of these things. And, there's not a lot of talk in the group about food addiction and the pain around food for some people, and, related to a trauma response. And I just want this to be a safe space, and maybe just what I said about sit with it. And like, when I say that, I get a charge, because I know, well, there's someone who's very dear to me that I know struggles with this. And I almost like can feel the pain, but I also feel the resistance. Right. So the food journaling, it's like, okay, so let's say you do it for awareness, accountability. Awareness is one thing, but it's usually accountability. It's usually, my experience has been from a critical parent place of, what am I doing wrong? Let me find it. Let me hold myself accountable. Let me be disciplined. All those words right there, to me, set up resistance.
Right.
So we know that what we resist persists.
Because
right?
of criticism, and we don't want to be criticized as human beings. We struggle with that because the reflection is sometimes we see it as critical. And instead of a place of growth, we see it as that place of criticism, which is where we put up our defenses. And I think what is coming into this community, our goal of this community, is to be able to be vulnerable and to start bringing the awareness to accept the ability and the need to reflect. And I think that's something that I know, like Sean and Crystal lead by example, because they'll come in the group and they'll share their reflection and their ownership. But society has trained us for so many years that a reflection or an observation is a criticism, and it's taken in a negative way that we put up a shield. And we don't want to we're trying to help break down those shields to help get through it, to be empowered. And our community is the space to dig through those shields. And I'm hoping that what we're building here is the trust to start wearing down that shield so we can help you get to the other side.
Absolutely. And this is why I'm sharing my experience with it, because I've been there. And of course, at this point, I've coached so many people, and you can feel that it's like this push-pull when somebody has an issue. They want something, but they can't let down a barrier to get it. And they're going to stay in that safe space, what appears to be a safe space of a diet mentality, which is a box. And I don't expect anyone to come in here and share their past traumas, but if just those words, sit with it, if that's a charge for you, then maybe you need some support in getting the other side of that. And then ER Shred, where ER Shred comes in. And this is something I've always said too, before ER Shred, that nutrition can literally lift you up. So if we go to the science and mitochondrial and metabolic energy, we know that cellular energy is heightened. So that lifts you up. When you're lighter, it lifts you up. And then when you get all the stuff out of your head, that's a whole nother thing. And I would bet that there are people in this community that could say, I know I'm one. Who I was is different. How I think is different. And that they have a more open, more abundant, freer mindset in just doing the ER Shred protocol.
Right.
What did Sean post today? And people are putting, like I put it, I feel alive, awake, alive, empowered, and after I wrote it, I thought it has nothing to do with weight. I didn't write one thing about weight, control, or anything.
So Brent's asking a question. How do you know you're not hungry? What feeling do you look for to define hunger? So to try and help clarify in those moments of when you're reflecting and digging in, am I bored? Is it a habit, or am I really needing to satiate myself? What are some of the signs or tips?
Well, first of all, when your body, if you're not fueling your metabolism, those people will typically wake up in the morning, but they're not really hungry. That was always my story. I wasn't hungry. When you're stoking the fire, and now when I get hungry, it's this like, whoa, it comes on suddenly, and it's like I need to eat. It's an intuitive thing. There's no question. So if you're not feeling that, your stomach's not growling, again, what I'm going to say about that is if you pause, take a breath, you'll know whether you're hungry or not.
And I think part of that too, I'm thinking back to the beginning of our conversation too, TDEE. Sometimes you might not be hungry, but I feel like you need to, like if you're so far away from your protein need. Like I know Michelle's an example. We talked last week. She struggles because she doesn't always eat enough. So sometimes she has to force herself to eat to hit her metabolic needs. Yeah, so that's part of it too, I think, is tracking where you are to make sure you're hitting the goals you need. And then what are you using to fuel that goal, to reach that goal?
Yeah. It's slippery. I think things that really resonate with your body are going to burn clean cleaner than others. And then, yeah, I've seen a lot of posts lately of people just not hungry. And what I would say, even if you're doing a bite, 2 bites all throughout the day, just to get that fire burning, we're all so unique. But I'm talking about overt, I don't want to say acting out, but overt behaviors of eating when you're not hungry. And, those that are struggling with that, they know they're doing it. It's painful. It's painful to carry those things. I know when I was 45 pounds heavier, that was painful to me. There was a lot of shame attached to that. I felt like I was a loser, whatever I was telling myself.
Right. And, I see that a lot in my family life too, that the food is in control. It's the driver. Yes. And it's the addiction, and there's so many, the spiral effect that goes with that. And so it's interrupting your thought. Am I in the driver's seat, or am I allowing food to be in the driver's seat right now? That's the pause. I'm in the driver's seat. I need to eat right now because I need to get another 60 grams of protein in my day. I want to eat right now because I'm bored and there's food in the fridge. And it's playing that game with yourself.
And the simplest thing about that for Brent is it doesn't feel good when you act on that. And it says, who put it out there? The information, the Hicks. I forget their book. I don't know. It was not The Secret, but the Hicks. And what they said, if it doesn't feel right, it's not right. And so if we fail forward, right? So let's say you're acting on that. That's what keyed me into the eating when bored. What was I doing? I was eating when I was bored. It's not like I was gaining 15 pounds. I was just like, what are you doing, dude?
And so from my perspective, that's food journaling in a different way. So when I was food journaling, and I'm not going to lie, I have totally fallen off the path of that because that's not in my top priorities right now, although it needs to come back. I was journaling to identify my culprits. So I was journaling with new food. I was journaling with reactions, mood, energy, and I was tracking into my maintenance. But I think tracking the habit of the food too is something that I've never really journaled about, but I think it tells another layer of the story. So it's like you've got the Tdee Calculator as a tool. You've got your food journal as a tool to identify your culprits, to identify that, but it can also help you identify your habits. If it's done authentically. And that, I think, is the piece too, that maybe you're not ready to share in the group, but will you be authentic with yourself? That's really who you need to show up for.
Yes.
And that's who you need to tell the real story to. And if you need help with that, that's what the community is there for. Maybe there's somebody in the community you're connecting with that maybe you're not ready to go in front of 24,000 and share that, but maybe there's somebody that you feel a heart connection to that you want to reach out to almost have that accountability too, right? Sometimes if you feel like you can't hold yourself accountable enough, maybe there's just one or two partners you want to connect with, because that's part of the empowerment too. Once you can own it, and owning those addictions, owning those emotions, owning those traumas is not easy. And then figure out where you feel safe, because sometimes being you only there for yourself, like if you're like me, I go to that critical spot and I just beat myself up and I don't give myself grace. And I don't give myself love when I get into that headspace. And that's where, like, Susan, I reached out to you this morning because I've used another tool. I did a body scan, right? And I shared it with you this morning.
Your head. Yeah.
And I got pissed because I'm not, like, I thought I was in a space where the scale was not defining me. And I thought I was getting empowered beyond that. And then this stupid piece of paper says to me I need to drop 16 pounds. And I went, what the hell? I thought I was doing good. But then we talked and I thought about the tools and I thought about what I've read, and seeing that I'm at 30% body fat and knowing for a female dropping below 25, 23% body fat is going to screw up my hormones. I'm really not in a bad place, but that stupid number screwed up my head and I let it derail me. And that's where I was grateful to be honest with you and share my information to help snap me out of it and stop beating myself up.
Right.
So, and I'll be completely transparent with the group because I don't care. Like, that's why I'm putting it out there. Yeah. I don't care, but I know that's not comfortable for everybody, and that's okay. But if you can't be that vulnerable with yourself, or if you are in a place where you are so self-critical, find somebody that's going to help snap you out of it and get you in the right headspace to keep moving through it. Because I think that is super, super important too.
Yeah, I see a lot of that in the group. And I know a lot of people lock arms. I know a lot of people reach out to me. I know they reach out to you. So yeah, Mimi's a great support to a lot of people with this kind of stuff. You know, just the day-to-day logistics of the journey to weight loss and, you know, how we self-sabotage is one thing. You know, the emotional is a whole nother thing. And again, it all goes back to that pause. And, you know, I'm really glad I fell into this and I started doing this because it's stopping me, because I've been asking, like, the question, who's in charge here? Like, I do that a lot. Like, what?
Yeah, you do. You're in my head saying it, Susan. Yeah. Just so you know, you're in my head saying it too.
So I set the intention, right? And then it was just like this in the flow of it, where let me do this, you know, this journal. And to me, the most powerful was sit with that. And then today, Crystal did a podcast on triggers, and she was talking about something else, but this applies to food. And I know that there, you know, so we're watching people in the group when we talk about triggers, and they're sharing this, that, the other recipes. It's all wonderful. And snacks that are off with processed foods. And, you know, so, and then when we ask these people what their results are, and but see, here's the thing. They're authentic and honest and saying that they struggle. Mm-hmm. So the question then becomes, what are you doing? You know, what is driving the behavior? Because it's not the behavior, it's what's driving it. And so that's the depth. That's part of the depth of VR Shred. We want you to get to that come alive moment. And, you know, it requires, you know, for me, when I did my first VR Shred, I had grass-fed chopped meat, pastured eggs, a ribeye steak. I think that was like it. And butter, you know, and because I was a skeptic and I wanted to see.
And I will say, since we've talked and I've been watching and I've backed off on the pork rinds. I've backed off. Like, I have the meat sticks available, and like, I keep them in my car. So if I'm ever in a pickle, I've got something. But now it's like, I cooked a bunch of chicken thighs and some meatballs, and that's what I grabbed for my snack instead of something prepackaged. So that's going to lean into mindset too, with what's important, what's my goal, how am I getting there, what's keeping me from getting there, and what am I willing to do to prepare myself and set myself up for success. And so once you did your Road to Empowerment Live, which if you need to watch it, it's in Guide 5 or on Mindset. It's there. I know where to find it. I know. You guys laugh at me. The board all laughs at me when I tell you exactly where to find it and what guide. But that even gave me a light bulb moment to say, hey, wait a minute. I think I can get even clearer if I go simpler. Mm-hmm. And even after a year of shredding, I went simpler. And I felt even more. And I've gained more power. I've gained more willpower. I've gained more energy. I've gained more focus. Like, we go to the gym 5 days a week now. It's just, and that's because I want to. It's not like I feel like I have to. It's what I want to do. That's my release. Before, before ER Shred, it was a bottle of wine. During ER Shred, it was the pork rinds, dipped in leftover hollandaise sauce. Have you ever tried that? But it was my ER Shred approved onion dip. Now it's go beat the crap out of the kickboxing bag for a little while if I need to. I've clarified, I've simplified, I've found better ways for me to cope because I found my triggers. It was this, I substituted this with this. Yeah. Is that really what my body needs? Is that really where I'm going? And reflecting on it, I didn't journal it. I'm sure I probably would have peeled back even more if I wrote about it, because writing about it does open it when you can come back to it. And I think that's important too. When you talk about journaling, go back every couple of days and read what you did and sit with that and see what you learned from it. Because sometimes when you're in the moment, getting it all out, you don't see it. And I think that's part of, and that's something I think I've learned in education as well. As a teacher, I sit back and I look at lessons and I look at what happened a couple of days before and reflect to see what I can do. Because my students are a lot like a lot of new shredders. They're coming wanting us to tell them what to do, right? That's what everyone's been trained to do. And so trying to push them to see and then reflect on their own to see where they can grow. It's not always easy.
No. Like I said, it's just an awareness tool. And, what happened was because I took the action on that, it's leading me into deeper things. And even tonight, it's like, I'm not even quite sure what I want to say and how to get it, but I can risk being vulnerable to play in it because I know that there's something here for all of us. I want to go back to the snacking and about the emotionality of it. So the emotional piece is a separate issue, which you could journal that alone. Like I was planning not to have this, but it's here and I'm having it, like that kind of behavior. Then I'm also doing for some people in this community, we all come from different backgrounds, right? Mm-hmm. Some of us were drinking soda. Some of us were eating candy. Some of us were, eating a bunch of refined carbohydrates, bread, pasta. Some of us had health challenges. We've been on antibiotics and steroids and all these gut disruptors. So that's another thing with the processed foods. You're less likely to light up your gut biome to propel you in the wrong direction if you keep it simple. And I was telling Heather before we came on, there's actually a thing. It's called psychobiome. I mean, it's a thing. It's a bona fide science that's emerging that, eating certain things, it affects microbes in your gut, which directly affect your brain and inflammation. So that is why keep it simple, because we forget the piece that we're healing a lot of things. A lot of people came into this community, were attracted to this community to heal. So body, mind, spirit, why can't we have all of it? And I think that is what ER Shred is evolving into, like with Lenny, the spirit of ER Shred, that's a big part of this community. And we're just evolving there because I've always said the Holy Trinity is body, mind, spirit, really, and it all goes together. So following the script, keeping it simple, eating these simple foods, nourishing our bodies, which that's a really great word. Nourishment. What does it mean to you? What does it mean to you when you're putting something in your body to nourish you? And is it nourishing you? So I don't know. For me, the energy of a sunny side egg as opposed to a pork rind is very different in how I'm fueling myself and how I'm nourishing myself. So maybe that kind of languaging helps with that.
And it's not just nourishing our bodies, it's nourishing our souls and our minds too.
Well, that's a natural, yeah.
It all just needs to, and like those emotions and those triggers and those the traumas and stuff, they need nourishment to be healed. Mm-hmm. They need the nourishment to be cleansed. They need that space. It's all.
Yeah. And then I offer to people who are not hungry or who are going off and snacking, doing what I do, eating when you're bored, and really pay attention because, see, it's so funny because you all know this. Most of you all know what foods are the best for you. You know, for some people, it might be dark meat chicken. For some people, eggs, like revs their metabolism. For other people, it might be meat. I was raw meat this week. I'm like reaching out to Jesse, like something's happening over here. But my body was, if you tap in, your body will lead you to that place. And once you let that carry you, you're going to get that come alive moment. And that will springboard you into whatever's next for you. Because the awareness is all inclusive, right? You know, I don't know about anyone else, but I see colors when I'm on my walk. I notice trees, flowers, things I missed. I'm more in my moments. And, this thing with even the food journaling, my awareness has changed, my awareness for my life, and that, of course, brings abundance, gratitude, peace. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, no, it all connects and it stabilizes us. Mm-hmm. And in the chaos that is everyday life, that stability is it's so important and it's so empowering.
Yeah, we have the most amazing community, so the bottom line with the food journaling is to lighten it up. Be aware of if you're looking. I know for me, and I didn't realize it, I was looking for what I was doing wrong. And the other piece that I got just lately is when I was in my health crisis and I was going through autoimmune issues and I was not well, and I was looking for what I was doing wrong, what I was choosing, and I was doing all these different things with diet. And so was it as simple as I was eating food culprits? And then when we listened to a story about Michelle, what is it that simple? That she was eating culprit foods that decimated her health, that decimated my health, even though I thought I was healthy, eating healthy, right? So that to me was a very empowering thought because maybe there's nothing wrong with me. And I know in my practice, because when I was dealing with that, I would attract in a lot of autoimmune. And autoimmune, and I don't want to say this to offend anyone, but I can say it because I lived it. It's sort of autoimmune issues carry like this victim mentality. And so these people, and I came in nervous, unsure. I wanted somebody to tell me what to do. At the end of the day, I got my own self out of it. But yeah, and a lot of that was food, and then ER shreds sealed the deal. Yeah.
And I think with that victim mentality also comes a lot of self-judgment.
Yes, because I thought I was doing something to cause this, which may or may not be true. But what I realized, and as I'm looking at the community with a lot of these people, it's what they were eating. So we followed the script. This is what we were told. And we're actually living that out nationwide. People following the script and their health is decimated. What did Jesse say? Mitochondrial energy is 85% of the population has low mitochondrial energy. That's a shame. And that's directly related to, diet, directly related to diet. So we're not going to be doing that in the ER shred.
No.
Flipping that script.
Yeah, we're flipping that script and we're giving ourselves grace, and we are not dwelling and we're not beating ourselves up, and we are living it and we are moving forward. Every shred doesn't have to be perfect. If we want to touch on real quick too, subsequent shreds. If you have cleared a food that it's not a culprit for you, it's okay. The shred script is yours once you've hit your baseline. We're really trying to get people to narrow that road on their initial shred.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have had your come alive moment, if you've gotten to that place and you know Ionic Supreme is not a culprit for you, if you know avocado is not a culprit for you, and you want to use that on your subsequent shreds, go right ahead. It's your food blueprint to write. But we just encourage, based on what we watch, with those that have food triggers and food addictions and food culprits, narrow that road and keep it simple until you have sparked that moment. You have had your come alive. You have had your aha. The switch has flipped for you until you get there. And it might not be shred 1. It might not be shred 2, because sometimes it's years of undoing that needs to be done. So be patient with yourself. Give yourself grace. Trust the process. But absolutely, once you have had that moment and you know what your body fuels well with, feel free. The map's yours. We're not here to tell you what to do. We're just here to empower you. We are here to educate you. We are here to inspire you. We are here to provide you tools. Like tools tonight, food journaling, the Tdee Calculator, being mindful of your triggers. All of those things are tools that we're trying to empower you with, because you are ultimately the person in charge. You are ultimately the one who's deciding, yes, I'm hungry. Nope, I'm eating because I'm bored and I'm going to stop. You're going to interrupt yourself. You're going to be the deciding factor. We just hope that you find value in what we bring and that you are here, you feel your support. And once you've had your come alive moment and you get it, you give back that support to the community, because that is powerful too. And I think for me, even though, again, this is my educator side, not my sciencey side, because I don't have one. Susan and Jesse are my science side. I just talk to them. But my educator side, as I watch these stories unfold and as I see stories coming to light and struggles coming to light, I reflect and I see how it was on my journey. And sometimes it brings a whole new awareness to myself. So play in the community as well. Read those stories, because it may peel back a layer for you you didn't even know you were sitting on, because somebody was vulnerable and they shared their trigger, they shared their trauma, they shared their addiction. And maybe you can feel that connection to reflect and not criticize, not self-criticize, but reflect, become aware, and help move through it, whether it's in the community that we're supporting you through it, or that we've just brought that awareness to you so you can dig your way through it too. So any final thoughts, my friend?
Well, just that we learn from each other every day. I know I do. It, part of the depth that I'm seeing here is because of the community and what people bring, that this is a safe space, and that the bottom line is to pay attention. And if you think something is good or bad or off, you're probably right. And, I remember when I was practicing, seeing my own clients, and when I would tell people that, and it was like they would exhale, like as if they, they would say to me, well, I don't think I should eat dairy. I would say, you're probably right. And then I work on a daily basis with people that want to pay $1,000 for food testing. They already know. They already know a lot of that. So trust yourselves. Let's all grow together. We have such a beautiful, beautiful community. Let's keep it light. Let's keep it moving. And yeah.
So I'm so excited about this. And then again, I invite everybody to the Come Alive call tomorrow night, 8 Eastern, 7 Pacific and whatever the other time zones are, because I don't do math beyond that. And then Thursday night, Crystal Escobar is filling in on the Shredders Unite call. I will be her guest, so the female power of the board reunites. Crystal and I will be talking about time management. That will be Thursday night at 8 Eastern. And then however it falls into your time zone, that I believe we will be sharing not only in Zoom, but in the ER Shred and Shredders United, because we're talking about time management and how that can best serve you on your journey as you go to move forward. So that's what we've got for tonight.
Let me just plug, and Crystal's podcast on triggers was also.
Yes, I haven't gotten to listen to it yet, but I did see her post it. Yeah. So go check out the Wanna Be Balanced Mom podcast. Wanna Be Balanced, check it. I'm sure she shared it in the group as well, because I know it's going to bring massive value to us. So we hope you got value out of this. As you need us and you have questions, you know where to find us. Susan and I are always in the community. We are always here for you. Shred Your Body will be back again next week with a whole new guest. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, loves.